Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a story that is completely redefining the landscape of modern sports. We're going to look at how global displacement, mixed with just incredible human resilience, is fundamentally shaping modern football. We often think of these global superstars as products of elite, hyper-funded academies from day one. But the reality of the game is shifting dramatically, and the talent is coming from places that will absolutely astound you. So how does a boy born in a refugee camp become the captain of a World Cup team? Just picture the absolute pinnacle of football success for a second. Imagine stepping onto the pitch at a massive stadium in Atlanta, leading the Canadian national team against Lionel Messi and the reigning World Cup champions, Argentina, in front of 70,000 screaming fans. Now flip that script and contrast that staggering reality with the harsh truth of starting your life in a tin hut barely larger than a minivan. It sounds like an impossible leap, right? But it's exactly what happened. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Captain on the Global Stage, Alphonso Davies. Just think about the sheer monumental scale of what this guy has achieved. At an incredibly young age, he was named captain of the Canadian men's national team under head coach Jesse Marsch. We're talking about a Champions League and Club World Cup winner, a five-time Bundesliga champion with the German giant Bayern Munich. And remember, he transferred there from the Vancouver Whitecaps for a then MLS record $22 million when he was just 18 years old. But as Coach Marsch points out, it's not just the trophies or the raw skill. Davies carries this immense emotional gravity. He leads by example, literally bearing the hopes of a diverse nation that's co-hosting the 2026 World Cup. So, how did it all start? Let's jump into Section 2, Fleeing War for Canada, A New Beginning. Way before the fame and the bright lights, there was Monrovia, Liberia. The Second Liberian Civil War came right to the doorstep of Alphonso's parents, Debea and Victoria. His father recalls how guns completely dictated their daily survival, literally deciding when they ate, how they moved, and if their kids would even survive. Fleeing that absolute terror, they arrived at Buduburam. It's a refugee camp in Ghana, and that is where Alphonso was born in the year 2000, living in a tiny tin hut. His parents actually told documentary filmmakers that Alphonso had never even stepped foot in Liberia. His entire early reality was just the extreme adversity of that camp. Less than 1%. Let that sink in for a second. That is the staggeringly tiny fraction of global refugees who are resettled each year. It is a statistical miracle. In 2005, the Davies family became part of that tiny fraction when a country called Canada finally said yes. They packed up and moved to Edmonton. Imagine the utter shock of that transition, going from a refugee camp in West Africa to the freezing, snowy winters of Alberta, Canada. Talk about a culture shock. Moving right along to Section 3, Rising to a Global Star, the Making of an Icon. This is where raw potential meets real opportunity. When the family arrived in Edmonton, Alphonso was this shy 5-year-old kid. He actually learned English just by kicking a ball around with other kids, mostly because football is kind of the one universal language everyone already speaks, right? But talent needs a launch pad. Just like institutions such as Stenberg College provide international students with the skills and confidence to pursue their dream careers in new countries, community athletic programs unlock immense potential for kids. For Davies, it was a local program called Free Footy. It's this amazing, cost-free after-school soccer program for kids whose families really struggle to afford registration fees, gear, or transportation. Without this critical, grassroots local support system, his international superstar potential might literally never have been discovered. And his trajectory? Unbelievably fast. Born in a camp in 2000, resettled in 2005. Then, boom. By 2016, at just 15 years old, he makes his professional debut for the Vancouver Whitecaps, becoming the second youngest player in Major League Soccer history. 2017 brings his Canadian citizenship, and by 2026, he's captaining his nation at the World Cup. It is simply breathtaking. He went from the under-16 level to an MLS All-Star in barely 3 years. Picture this. At just 17 years old, standing in front of the massive FIFA Congress, with braces still on his teeth, Alphonso declared, "A country called Canada welcomed us in. My dream is to someday compete in the World Cup." He was passionately lobbying for North America's World Cup bid. But actually, rewind a year. While waiting to take his citizenship oath at 16, he watched a short documentary created by his club about his own life and saw his mother cry for the very first time. He was quite literally learning the full, heavy reality of his own origin story at the exact same time the rest of the world was. Now, let's zoom out a bit. Section 4, Canada's Diverse Team, A Family of Nations. Because Davies is definitely not an isolated case here. Consider the makeup of the Canadian squad that recently made history by reaching the World Cup last 16. We've got Milan Borjan in goal, whose family fled the Croatian War of Independence and arrived in Canada when he was 13. There's Ismail Kone, born in Ivory Coast, who arrived in Montreal at age 7 with his mom. Jonathan David, born in Brooklyn to Haitian parents, raised in Port-au-Prince and Ottawa. Nathan Saliba, whose dad played football back in Haiti. This whole team is literally built by families from all over the globe who fled war, hardship, and poverty. Together, they completely transformed a nation's football identity, proving for sure that diversity is an incredible athletic asset. So what actually drives a team like this? Goalkeeper Milan Borjan captures it perfectly. Canada gave my family everything. When somebody gives you that much love, you have to return it. That is the ultimate emotional motivation anchoring these players. They carry the immense, unpayable debt of their family's survival right onto the pitch. As Alphonso's father Davies once noted, every single time his son steps on the grass, it's for them. You can't fully repay a country for taking your family out of a tin hut in a refugee camp, but you can certainly play your heart out for it on the world stage. And this brings us to our final part, Section 5, Refugees Changing the Game, Global Football Shifts. Okay, pause for a second and let this number really sink in. 117 million. That is the staggering reality of how many displaced people there currently are worldwide, according to the UN Refugee Agency. And crucially, almost 49 million of them are children. The refugee experience isn't just a Canadian feel-good football story. It is a massive, structural, global shift that is fundamentally shaping the entire sport around the world. The UNHCR recently launched a campaign highlighting a game-changing team of players who share Davies' background. You've got Nestori Irunkonda of Australia, born in a camp in Tanzania after his parents fled Burundi. His teammate Mohamed Toure, born in a camp in Guinea. Aur Mabil, born in Kenyef Kakuma camp. And Eduardo Camavinga, the French superstar who was born in a refugee camp in Angola. These athletes represent a complete transformation of where world-class talent is actually coming from, and they bring an entirely different level of grit and perspective to the game. Bringing the narrative all the way back to Alphonso Davies, he recently reflected, "Whilst the refugee camp provided a safe place for my family when they fled war, I often wonder where I would have been if I had stayed there." But because he didn't stay there, he recently made history off the pitch too, becoming the very first footballer ever named a UNHCR Global Goodwill Ambassador. When he steps onto the global stage, he isn't just representing Canada or Bayern Munich. He's representing those 49 million displaced kids who are still waiting for their chance. Which brings us to this final, pretty provocative thought. How many future global game changers are currently just waiting for a country to say yes? The next Alphonso Davies or Eduardo Camavinga might be kicking a makeshift ball in a camp right now, simply waiting for an opportunity. It really makes you ponder the immense, untapped human potential currently waiting in camps all around the world. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it gives you a totally new perspective the next time you watch these incredible athletes step onto the pitch.